We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
We grow when we give.
Nosotros crecemos cuando damos.
We grow when we give.
与えるとき成長する。
We grow when we give.
Welcome to R.O.G, Return on Generosity, a podcast celebrating generosity at work. Not financial giving, giving valuable time, alternative perspectives, and genuine collaboration.
Welcome to the R.O.G, Return on Generosity podcast. I am your host, Jabari Whitehead, and today we have our special guest, Dr. Maureen Reusche. Dr. Reusche is an accomplished educational leader with over 3 decades of experience in driving systemic change across K-12 school districts. Currently serving as the superintendent of the Haverford Township School District in Pennsylvania, Maureen has demonstrated a deep commitment to educational excellence, financial stewardship, and community engagement. Under her leadership, the district has navigated the challenges of COVID-19 while ensuring continuous support for students, staff, and programs, basically everybody, particularly for special education students. She is also the architect of initiatives aimed at fostering a greater sense of belonging among students and enhancing district-wide communication. A recognized leader in educational technology and curriculum development, Dr. Maureen Reusche has been awarded multiple competitive grants for innovative projects in technology integration and curriculum development. Her passion for education extends to various professional affiliations and volunteer roles, where she continues to shape the future of education at both the state and national levels. What I appreciate about you most, Maureen, is your authenticity, the way you show up for people, the energy you bring to the room. I will tell you that over and over again, and I certainly appreciate you and that magnetic energy we talk about. Welcome to R.O.G, Dr. Maureen Reusche.
Well, thanks, Jabari. Thanks for having me here. Thanks for that introduction. I'm excited to spend this time with you tonight. You and I, our paths initially crossed about 20 years ago. And there were a few fleeting times where we would encounter one another at different events. You were always someone that I looked to learn from, someone whose company I enjoyed being part of, for not only learning professionally, but creating that opportunity for people to really think about who they want to be as human beings, and seeing ourselves as continuous learners throughout this journey in life. So I'm thrilled to spend a little bit of time with you anytime I can. So tonight, thanks for having me.
Well, likewise, and you've been in high profile school districts. And in those school districts, you can't afford to be a shrinking violet. You weren't afraid of the spotlight or the microphone or the microscope for that matter. So it's definitely an honor to learn from you. And so as we move forward, please share a little bit about your background.
Sure. I started out my educational career, like lots of other people, a teacher in a classroom. And it's important for me to note that, because I think that's, they're my roots. And that's what I believe is a source of pulling us together, of uniting us in some way. So in addition to spending time in the classroom, I also worked as a director of curriculum, a director of technology, as you mentioned, assistant superintendent, superintendent. I was an elementary principal for a period of time. And all that body of work spanned the districts of Radnor Township School District in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, Cherry Hill Public School System over in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and here in School District of Haverford Township in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. And I've also had the opportunity and pleasure to teach courses at higher education institutions in the area throughout my career. Met lots of great people and had lots of opportunities for some collaborative learning as well.
Yeah, as I said, when you name those school districts, Radnor, Cherry Hill, I'd like to mention how big the Cherry Hill has 21 think almost 21 schools.
19 schools.
19 schools.
19 schools, over 12,000 kids.
19 schools, over 12,000 kids in the metropolitan Philadelphia area.
Yeah.
And I also taught there, so I have that background, and like you said, and it's really remarkable to be able to step into that spotlight and lead, and then also here in the Haverford Township School District. So thank you for sharing that. So, a question for you. Since we've met, as I stated, and I sound like a broken record, you continue to be the kind of person that shows up to the room with beautiful energy. And what I've observed on my journey and working with a good number of other superintendents in my time, you in particular regularly receive invites from teachers, students, and staff to visit schools, buildings. You receive invites from classrooms and different departments in the district. That's not the norm. So what do you think has given you this access at that level to be invited in? And then what causes others, you think, to welcome you into their spaces as this kind of invitation? Again, it's just not common, Maureen.
Well, thanks for pointing that out, because I think when there are certain things that either come easy to us in life that we don't realize, when you said they're like, that's not common, it's a little bit of a surprise to me, because it's sort of how I work. As you know, Jabari, the relationships and connections that we establish with people are so very important to me. And I think that's probably also why continuing to mention my time in the classroom was very important to me. I think that helps me make an initial connection with teachers that I meet. So questions that I can ask them. I try to put myself as learner, not as someone who is judging and evaluating when I'm first meeting people, and to help people to see, I really am trying to learn more about you, learn more about your environment. And so some will make that connection, and then I believe they're the ones who will reach out and invite me in. Once you're invited in, it's easy after that. Because once you're invited in, you are now in that arena where the conversation can be that much richer, with the individual. And it's sort of like that. They tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and then it's well, she does really care. She does really want to hear, and that's what's important. That's the other piece that motivates me to do that. I gain knowledge and insight that I don't have, particularly in this role. It's so far removed from the classroom, from transportation, from me talking with drivers, from talking with people in food service, from talking with people who are out on the playground. So by having those conversations, I gain insight into what their world is like. I gain knowledge as to what the challenges are that they face. And that can then influence my decisions that I might not be making that day, but making them later on. It keeps people in the forefront of my mind in terms of when this decision is made, who's going to be impacted and what will the impact be. And not that I think we're not going to keep everyone happy. That's not my goal. To say like who's going to like this decision, who will not like this decision, but how will this decision impact? And is that the way that it contributes positively to their life or the environment that they're trying to create for those that they're working with? So I think it's sort of like that, as I said, they tell two friends and tell two friends. And then I get the invitations. I make the connections with teachers, through my own work. I make the connections with our maintenance and grounds folks through the work my father did, that I can talk to those guys, and ask questions. I don't know what they know, but I can ask questions. And I think people like that when you're asking questions and trying to get to know a little bit more about what they do and what inspires them to do what they're doing.
Dr. Reusche, Maureen, it sounds like you're really talking about compound interest. We mentioned saying they tell one person, once you're invited in, it's easy. It's word of mouth. They tell one person, they tell someone else. And it really sounds like there's intentional in terms of compound interest and the position of being a learner. But you also noted something about, the type of work that your father did. How did that open your eyes to being willing to make that kind of connection? Because that seemed to be a point that I would like to hear more about.
Sure. My father was a landscaper by late afternoon, and a warehouse worker in a grocery store for a grocery store chain by early morning and mid afternoon. So it was through his landscaping. At one point in time, Jabari, I was an elementary principal over in Radnor School District, where the base of my father's customers lived.
Wow.
So I was a principal in school, with kids and families that knew him as, they're the guy who cut their grass. So that was an interesting dynamic, as well. But knowing what was important to him, assists me, as I said, like when I talk with the guys on our grounds, and just be able to make the connections with them. That was something that my father was really good at doing. When he finally finished his landscaping business, he had some customers that he had for decades that just stayed with him. And my father didn't modernize in any way. So that to me spoke volumes that there was something about him and the person that he was, that was, important to him. They didn't, move on until he chose to move on.
That's very powerful. Like that, that's very powerful. And kind of like this next question here. Here's the idea. I think we talked about this before. We lead how we were led. What is that quote to you? And then also, how is generosity connected to that?
So leading how we were led makes me think of like we teach how we were taught. Because sometimes, like, it's in that I want to become a teacher because I want to be like that person, or I don't want to be like that person, and I want to do something different. And I think the same can be said of leadership. I want to do what I have witnessed someone else do for other people, or the environment that I've watched someone work to create to enable other people to be the best that they can be, or I want to prevent that from happening. And I've experienced both in places where I work. So similar to, I would say, looking at how I'm going to teach the way I was taught or differently from the way I was taught. And there's a blend in there. I think the same is true for leadership. And generosity, when and I thought about that when you first told me about, using the word generosity and like, what does it mean? If we say someone is generous, I think instinctively we think, well, they're giving something. What is it that they're giving? And there are a lot of tangible things that you can give. For us as educators, I think the generosity, to be the most generous, is giving of your time. And I say that because it's others perceive it, there's truth to it, but there's a perception that, this time is limited. You only have so much of it. So if you're giving time to me, there's a feeling that comes over me, when I know that you're sincere about that time that you're giving it to me. So I see that's how I see the generosity within the leadership. If you're willing to give of your time, your spirit, to others, then that helps to enable them to be able to do their work.
We mentioned the word time, and there's a quote that says time is really spelled LOVE. Because you also mentioned your giving, and you mentioned spirit, Maureen. You mentioned spirit.
Yeah.
It's something it sounds like it's from a deeper place when you said spirit. Tell me more about that.
I hate to bring this time up, but I go back to during the pandemic. And there was so much going on. And I had to continually remind myself that, yes, there's a whole district, out here, and everybody's looking to see what we're going to do. And there's so much uncertainty, and uncertainty then breeds fear. But I had to remind myself that in addition to the community, in addition to the teachers, who's going to get lost in here? And so many times I was very concerned about our administrators, because they're sandwiched in between, and trying to answer to so many people. And I think our building principals in particular were thrown into a role that is more like a superintendent, without any desire to be there, without any period of observation of someone else, thinking, yes, this is something that I may want to do someday. But that's like, in this role, you've got everybody, it's so many entities want something from you at the same time. And I watched our principals just experience that. And then my concern came with their own families, and were they taking care of themselves? Were they really spending time? And you might, maybe you forgot, because we all try to forget this time. But so I tried to get like a game, a family game, and mailed it to each one of the principals, like, make time with your family, play this game, or do something to have fun. And I think for me, that's where it comes back, that spirit piece, like almost like spiritual, like in a way, like I have got to take care of these people. Now, and I know it wasn't my job to take care, but that's how I feel about it at some points in time. And sometimes there's the cliche, but we're a family, and that's, there's truth to that, but it went deeper for me during COVID.
And you did that, and I mentioned about the idea of grace, Maureen. The whole idea, you mentioned consideration, what you had to consider, and just like any of us, you're a human being, and there's many fears and underlying feelings of insecurity or uncertainty on your own side, and all that chaos in the social political climate. When there were times where people were in the audience that were not from the district, there's angry members in the crowd holding up signs, and yet you still sat there professionally, gracefully. How did you manage that? Can you say more about how you manage that generosity in that chaos? Think about that most volatile moments, especially when the unmasking, right? The whole idea of mask versus mask, those moments. How did you manage generosity in that chaos?
Well, I don't know that I always managed generosity, or that I was always graceful in that chaos, because I will admit to you now that there were times, Jabari, where I would just sit there and think, no matter how much authority you have, Maureen, you can't stop time. This will be over. It's going to come to an end. And this would just be like this night meeting. But I, at some point in time, and I don't know exactly when it happens for me, but with different situations, Jabari, that I have experienced throughout my tenure, there is a point in time where I remind myself, it's almost like internally it automatically happens, like, you need to remember the role you are in, and how you react is going to influence, not set the tone, but it's going to influence the environment. You need to remember that the people who work with you, as accomplished as they are, because of the role you hold, they're looking to you to see how you react. And they will respond. It'll be different for each one of them. So I've always felt the best thing I can do for our administrative team, and sometimes it's the best thing I can do for a group of parents that I'm meeting with, or for a group of students that I will be working with, is to help them to feel, we'll get through this. we'll get through this. So my facial expressions, the tone of my voice, the way I carry myself, all contributes to people forming an impression. And it either instills a sense of we're going to be okay, or it can add to the fear or stress or whatever people are feeling. And I think throughout COVID, there were times, Jabari, where I thought that's all I can do. That's all I can do. So if this is all I can do to help people, then I better make sure that I'm aware of it and do it as well as I can.
Ryan Holiday wrote a book, Stillness is Key. And I think about the moments that I had to witness for you, where there's moments where the public wanted you to come out with a statement. I want to make sure people understand I did witness the grace and stillness in that time when it's so difficult, because you wonder inside whether or not did I miss an opportunity? Was I supposed to say something? And I've had that phone call to you or our end just to find out what should we do, and you've always modeled that. So I want to continue to thank you for that example.
You are welcome. And Jabari, you've served in that capacity here, but you and there are a few others. And I think for any superintendent that, we're a big administrative team, but there are a couple of people that I will, like in that instance, what do you think? What do you think? Like, they want me to say this, or they want me to say something. But, I think it's important for us to have people like that. Like, I can say to you, they want me to say something, but I think if I say something, this is what it's going to be. And you'll be very open with me.
So that whole idea of reaching out and that opportunity is that Liz Wiseman talked about being a multiplier and the generosity. That role of being a multiplier when you meet people and interacting, when you walk away from them, what do you often wonder when you've had an interaction, when you've been able to spend time? What do you often wonder about your interactions in terms of, is that person feeling greater or more capable? Or like, what is that? How does that land for you?
For me, I want the person to feel good about what they're doing. I want them to feel like good about their work, or whatever it was that we happened to to talk about. So I'll also try to remember, and I was much better before than I am now, but like I'll try to follow up with an email, or I'll try to, and when my memory was better, I could jot a little thing down that, like, if they mentioned something about a child, or if they mentioned something personal that was coming up, or I would try to remember, not always, but to be able to follow up with them and say, I remember my visit to your office, or my, the conversation that we had in the hallway, how's this going, or how's that? And I hope that helps them to feel seen and heard, because I think that can be a great motivator for the work that we do. And in the times when I see people in the hallway, I have no problem, and you've seen me too, no problem saying, oh my God, I completely forgot. You told me such and such, and I didn't ask you about that, or how's that? And people are just so kind. Like, they don't really care that you forgot. If you say to them when you see that, like, I forgot about that, but please tell me now, how's it going? How did that work out for you? I think people are just so appreciative that somebody knows something personal about them, or something that is important to them in their workplace.
So typically, the position of school district superintendency has been dominated by males, right? A good portion over time, especially in our space.
Correct. Yes.
All right. Well, we learned that you earned your first teaching position out of college in 1984. Mm-hmm. What influenced you?
82.
82. Okay. All right.
82.
What influenced you to take that path of school leadership and then ultimately as the superintendency? What encouraged you? What made you believe it'll influence you to go in that direction?
Jabari, I was very blessed throughout my career in that I had people who tapped me, who would say, I had people reach out and say, like, have you considered this? You would be really, really good at this. After our youngest daughter was born, I left the classroom, but I was doing some teaching at Rosemont College. And during that time, we started doing some strategic planning work, and local school district would bring us in to do work. And Radnor was one of the districts that brought us in. And at the time, John DeFlamis was the superintendent there. And John was the first person to say what, and if John was could be a little gruff sometimes. And he was like, what the heck are you doing? Like, you need to be in the school district doing this work. So like they plant, how like someone just plants the seed in your mind. And then, John is also a very generous, a leader who demonstrates a lot of generosity in his career. That wasn't the only time, that he reached out to me, and it eventually reached out, like, I've got some part-time work here. Would you consider, doing that? And that's how I started working in Radnor. I wasn't teaching in Radnor. Started doing part-time work as a director of technology, for them. And then, as I mentioned, like different people that I would meet along the way suggested that I pursue other jobs. It wasn't, and I never, even when I was an assistant superintendent, my first assistant superintendency was in Radnor, never wanted to be a superintendent. And I used to, be around, I'm not going to be a superintendent. That's not a job. That's a lifestyle. I'm not going to do that. And it was in Cherry Hill where I started to think, and I knew that the gentleman was leaving. So I started to think, I can do that. Like
That's brave, by the way. That's brave. In that moment, yeah, brave.
Well, and I was like, I can do that because I knew all the players. I had been there for 4 years as assistant superintendent. So I knew all the building principals. I knew the administrative team, and it was more so than I can do it. Then I started to think, we can do this. They don't need to bring somebody new in. We can do this. So that was really the first time. That's how I ended up there. And then here was like coming home for me, because my parents moved from West Philadelphia to Havertown in 1967. So it was, when this job opened up, then I was like, I'm going to apply for that one.
So what do you think those people you mentioned in Radnor, we coming from Rosemont College, doing some things part-time, and what do you think they saw in you? Because it's one of those moments where someone sees something greater than you than you may see in yourself. Not that you may lack confidence, but the gift or generosity of someone seeing who you can become versus where you are. So what do you think those elements or attributes were within you at that time that they saw that and tapped you for it?
Sure. For a long time, I used to ask myself that question: what do they think I can do? Worry about this imposter syndrome. Like, they think I can do what? They're nuts. I can't do that. And I don't know that it was necessarily a skill set, Jabari. I'd like to think that what they saw in me was a work ethic that, I'm going to stick with something until it gets done. A work ethic that's, I'm going to roll my sleeves up and be right alongside the people who are doing the work. And maybe before I saw it myself, they saw the connections that I made with people, because that sort of, and I do it in a quiet way. I'm not allowed, like, I don't take over the room when I come in. In a quiet way, I make those connections. So maybe that was something that they saw in me before I recognized that about myself.
I don't know. I think you take over the room without trying to. I think it's your. I think it's your. People appreciate your demeanor. We enter the space, and it lightens the space. I think that's
good.
from what my time with you I've received, or maybe I'm just biased, but at the same time, I think there's a lightning that happens into the room. Like Maureen's here, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. So
well, that's good. Thank you.
And so as we keep moving on here, as you walk the halls now, as you walk the halls of administration building, the images of all who came before you, all those bros, all those dudes, all those male superintendents. They're all men.
They are.
When you retire, shift past, because that's what you're doing. You're shifting just to another space. You will be the first female on those walls.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
It means I'm adding navy blue and a splash of pink to that wall. I made sure of that when they took that picture. No, but I think it's been very interesting, or it's been I don't know what the right word is that I'm looking for right now, Jabari, but I realized in looking at your questions, I don't think when I first started here that even really hit me. And it was a piece in the newspaper, about the first female superintendent. And I don't think it really hit me until actually Anna Deacon, who works here, was saying, we have to get your picture, for the wall. And I'm like, yeah, we'll get your picture for the wall. And she said, no, like there could be little girls coming through here at some point in time. And it's very important. And when she said that, like I got a little emotional, because maybe because that's the heart of what we do, like children. So when she said there could be little girls coming through here and they're going to see your picture up there, and what will that mean for them? And I think, so we had the picture taken. We'll have, I don't know, we'll get it up there at some point in time. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to have my grandchildren walk through the hall when that picture is up there before I leave.
That's incredible. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Because, like you mentioned, you have to see it to be it. You talk about representation, and the work of equity, even from a female perspective, and those models, you have to see it to be it. And I'm going to be proud. I'm looking forward to seeing the halls, brightening up the halls, Doc, brightening it up.
That's right. Yep, you got to brighten that hall up, definitely.
All right, so I have some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So are you ready?
I think so. I'm not sure.
What is one of your favorite songs? If you could pick one that gets you going, what is one of your favorite songs? What comes on top of mind?
Fill Me Up, Buttercup.
Good classic.
Yeah.
All right. Best or worst advice you've ever been given?
Best advice that I was ever given actually came from that Superintendent John DeFlaminis. As it said, he first hired me, and a few months into my working there, he said, you don't often have much to say, but when you speak, you don't realize how powerful it is. And you should speak more often. And I thought that, and Jabari, that goes back to 1993. Kind of that's a long time ago. And that has stayed with me.
Worst advice you've ever been given?
That's probably something more like some silly car my husband and I bought. Yeah, a period of time where we thought a convertible would be a good idea. Just as we had a soccer and a field hockey player, And so, with the big book bags and picking them up from school and the bucket seats. It's not
A convertible. Well, I have to know now. What convertible was it? What
Sebring. It was a Sebring.
Chrysler Sebring. Oh, okay. All right.
Sebring.
What color?
Yeah. Silver with the black top. Yeah.
Oh man.
On nice days, it was fun to drive, but not with a middle schooler, and a fifth grader.
Anything in terms of leadership? Worst advice you've received? You ever been given?
Oh, worst advice?
Yep.
No, nothing that really comes
All right.
to mind. Because if I thought it was bad, I probably just wrote it off.
Well done. What do you do for fun? I know some things, but tell us more.
So I do enjoy gardening. I do enjoy going to the beach, bike riding. Love being outdoors, things like that. I started playing golf 2 years ago. I really love that. As you mentioned, I'm retiring, so there are some things I'm looking forward to there. I can't sing, but I like to sing, so I figured the group that would accept me
Me
will
too.
will be the choir at church. So I'm going to join the choir at church after I retire. And there's a gardening club at church, and I'm looking forward to doing that, and some volunteer work at our church.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff.
Yeah.
What do you love about St. Patrick's Day?
St. Patrick's Day. I love the whole, bringing everyone together.
Yes.
That kind of thing. It's a fun day. My sister and I we actually start with breakfast at 7:30 in the morning downtown, and it's a good day. So I think maybe for me now at this point in my life, what I like most about St. Patrick's Day is the tradition.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, the Kentucky Derby. You grew up in West Philadelphia and in Havertown.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get hooked on the Kentucky Derby? Where are the horses at you were looking at?
Well, I do enjoy horses. Do you know where the horses come? Do you know where the horses come from? So my parents are, as you know, my parents are both from Ireland. And when my father worked in Ireland, his job was taking the goods that came in on the railway and delivering them to the local shops. And he did that with a horse and cart. And when he left Ireland, his brother took that over. So he had a Clydesdale, actually. And when we would go to Ireland as children, we would get to ride the horse.
Wow.
We spent time. So I enjoy horseback riding. When my husband and I go away, he knows that we always have to find one place where we can go horseback riding on that trip. So the Kentucky Derby was just a bucket list trip for me.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. Now, what is something you care deeply about?
I care deeply about my grandchildren.
Yeah, there you go. Say more.
Yeah. I now have 2 grandchildren, 4 and 2 years old. I care deeply about who they will become and what life experiences they will have that will lead to the development of who they become or influence, eventually who they will become.
So what feelings do you get when you hear your grandchildren call your name? What do they call you now?
Nana.
Nana. So
Nana.
when you hear Nana,
Nana.
what's that feeling you get, and how does that add generosity to your own life?
Pure joy, just pure joy. Like it is like people say, like nothing you experienced, and it is different from your own children because you don't have that same level of responsibility, and it's just it's joyful. Just they're so funny.
Oh, well, that leads to the next question. What never fails to make you laugh?
You, Jabari. You. No, there are lots of things that'll bring a smile to my face. But in our line of work, you really can't go into a classroom without coming out of it with a smile on your face. And quite often, it's a combination of feeling good about what's happening in the room, but also seeing something funny. It's like seeing something that a kid did or that they said. They open you up to different ways of thinking. Yep.
Absolutely. They sure do. What do you think is the key to living a good life? The key to living a good life?
I think to living a good life is really being true to who you are. And that's harder. I believe it's harder than it sounds. Because I'm not sure that we always know who we really are. To know who you are, you have to know what's important to you, what you value, where you draw the line. But really staying true to who you are. I think the best thing, when someone can say to you, well, people know that you're not going to do this, or people know that you will absolutely take this under consideration, then that's like your words and your actions have allowed people to know what you stand for.
And that might go with the next question, Dr. Maureen Reusche. How do you want to be remembered as a leader in terms of generosity?
I want to be remembered as somebody who put people first, and I'm intentionally using the word people because it's children, but also the adults. Or maybe I can rephrase that a little bit. Maybe not always put people first, but always took the feelings and considerations, feelings of others into consideration when making decisions. Took the impact of a decision on people, gave that serious consideration before finalizing that decision. Someone who just understood that the people matter.
Wow. This is exactly what I thought it would be.
Wow. Good.
I truly enjoyed this time to connect with you, to have this time together, and just to share this space and hear you. And I know that the listeners and viewers will be able to take away the same, or at least I hope. Dr. Maureen Reusche, thank you so much for being here today. Thanks for being a friend, mentor, and I wish you well as you shift lanes. And you're still going working with a personal trainer?
Yep.
Keep it up. Stay strong, and I know you will. All right.
I will.
Dr. Reusche, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend, Dr. Whitehead. It was delightful to spend this time with you, and I enjoyed some of the self-reflection as well, which I always experience with you. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to R.O.G. Return on Generosity podcast. Please help us grow by subscribing and reviewing us on your favorite podcast player. And for more information, visit bridgebetween.com. We grow when we give.
우리는 나누면서 성숙합니다.
We grow when we give.
On rayonne quand on donne.
We grow when we give.